Hello, my friends. Welcome to this week's episode of the Badassladies Club. I am here with my good girl, Jessica.
That's me.
And my awesome friend, Chris Webb.
Yay.
Internet sensation, some random grandpa, wonderful man of wisdom, kilt wearing maniac. Chris Webb is in the studio, y'all. I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm really glad to be here. I've heard so much about you guys.
So let's start with how we know Chris.
Yes.
We know Chris because he is responsible for the fantastic Mandy Webb Hancock and Katie Webb, who've both been on the podcast before. So Mandy's been on a couple of times. Katie's been on once. They were really high downloaded episodes. You guys obviously love the Webb sisters. Mm-hmm. And Chris Webb is responsible for 50% of them. Well done, Dad. You had some great kids. And Matt, too. I've been in the family for, we're going on 18 or 19 years now that I've known your kids. And so it's funny because when you're friends and you meet your friends' parents, sometimes friends' parents are like your parents a little bit, and you have a weird authority thing with them. But you and I have never had that. We've always had this really camaraderie kind of friendship style relationship. And over the years, you've watched me grow up a lot. And I've watched you grow up a lot. And that you've always been this amazing source of wisdom for me, but not in a traditional sense. Okay. In a way where so oftentimes your perspective gave me so much relief and freedom for things that I was dealing with. That when we got to talking about podcast guests, I was like, man, you know who I can talk to all day long and I get such massive nuggets of wisdom from is Chris Webb. And which is part of what makes some random grandpa in your Facebook feed so much fun to follow is because you have this gift for taking things that sometimes are really sensitive or controversial and turning them on their head and giving people a new way of looking at something that if it came from someone else, they might be offended. But because it comes from you, they're willing to look at it and receive it with a more open mind. Do you find that to be true?
Yeah, I'm not sure why it is. It's been like that. As best I can tell my whole life. I take an interest in folks, and I think more than anything else, it's just a matter of listening. Realizing there are two sides of everything. When I talk about be who and what you are without apology, you have to allow that in everybody. Yeah. And so I'm just letting folks sit in front of me and being who and what they are and appreciating that and trying to find some kind of common ground. And it's always there.
It's always there.
And you can present your contrary view just by being respectful. Mm-hmm. It also helps to be consistent. I say that, you can get away with dang near anything if you're just consistent. And I
love
think that's part of what you're seeing too is, I think I've certainly grown and changed over time, like you said, but mostly it's just been really consistent.
Consistent's a great word for you. Absolutely. So backstory on Chris, because I remember one of the first things that you and I bumped up against where you really changed my perspective of things was how many different lifetimes and careers you've had. And that you always had this idea that people have lots of jobs and that's okay. And for so long, that was not Laurie's experience where I was blinders. I have one focus. I have one job. I have one career my whole life. And that's all I'll ever have. And that's all I'll ever be, and that you have been in the military and had a really intense and profound career in the military that you and I have gotten a chance to talk about pretty extensively. That's so inspiring to me. But that you've also been a lay minister, pastor, and worked in the church, in the Baptist church. And so we have a lot in common as far as just our history in the churches are concerned. You've had these 3 children and this family. You've navigated a divorce and a co-parenting situation over the years. You've worked in so many capacities as a writer and a mentor with people. And you've owned this dump truck company that you sold, where you were working in construction and stuff in a micro mini kilt, which we'll get to here in a little bit.
Well, not micro.
It's shorter than anything I might wear, and I love it. I'm totally into it. I'm here for it. But that these things don't go together in something that you would look at and be like, maybe the military man and the lay pastor thing do a little bit, but that
Right.
you've had so many different lifetimes worth of experiences and have totally trusted this like internal knowledge that you have that you're safe to authentically be who you are at every stage of the game. That shit's inspiring to me. And that it has given me a lot of freedom as a adult to follow some of my own paths and some of my own callings.
Yeah.
And a lot of that came out of the Gittite Way, which I think is probably the coolest part of getting to know you, is that you have written this amazing, I don't know, do you call it a book? Do you call it a manifesto? Like, what is the Gittite Way?
You know, I'm not sure what I call it. I've heard it called many things. Manifesto is one of the more powerful ones.
Yeah.
Opus, I've heard that. Which
Yeah.
Ooh.
Good.
It's been described as a book, of course, and a series of essays, and I dare say to some folks, and it scares me a little bit, scripture.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are folks who, folks around the world read it. I just give it away. It's not any kind of a secret. There's one fella, a good friend of mine from the Army, Roger Hall. He reads through it every year.
Oh.
And when he gets kind of down or whatever, he pulls it out. And, that book was written for people who were disillusioned and disenfranchised and discouraged. And so there again, I'm concerned about those kind of folks. And so I wrote the Gittite Way largely to document what I had gone through, how I had kind of turned things around from nothing, having been one of those disenfranchised and discouraged and despondent type folks. And like you said, I've been in church work for 25 years. I taught the Bible for 17 years, consecutively to adults. And, so I have a lot of rich background, varied background. It's going all the way back to when I was a kid. I was always different. In my high school photo, for instance, in the senior picture for everybody, I wore these international orange shoes. And so to this day, that's hanging in the, and I got away with it because I'd been wearing other things like that. I dressed like the Dr. Peppermint. Y'all too young to remember that,
but I love this idea that like even at a young age, you were totally comfortable expressing yourself in a way that made you look different than other people. And that you ran into that inclination where I feel like so many of us sometimes try and be the same. Like when I was young, I just wanted to look like everybody else, and that you've always had this knack of like, no, this is authentically who I am and I'm going to be that.
Well, and I'm sorry.
Oh, no. I was just going to, like, if we're on the subject of that, like, so when did the kilt wearing come in? Like, could you do that in the military when you were serving? Or like, how did that all?
When did you start to wear kilts? Let's talk about this.
Okay, that goes way back.
It's a good story.
It's a good story, yeah. And my mom will probably see this, but long time ago,
hi,
when I was a
Grams.
little kid, for Halloween, she dressed me up as an old woman, and I think I looked pretty good as an old woman.
Like,
But
well, dang,
I got my
good.
first experience at not wearing pants, and I realized like this isn't so bad. And we played a game called Wahoo back in the day.
Yeah.
And on the corner of the board were these pictures of Indians, or I guess called Native Americans now. And three of the corners had these Indian warriors, and they were kind of scantily clad. They had on a loincloth, one of them had like a little mini skirt, and they had their bow and arrow. And so I was just fascinated.
And you're like, badass.
I was fascinated. Those guys are badass. And it's like, I want to be like those guys. I want to be handy with weapons. I want to be, strong legs and courageous. And so early on, I started kind of being inclined that way. I was a runner. And so I had running shorts that I just sort of clipped into like running skirts. And so that was a consistent thing, really throughout my life. Of course, it became full time later on. You might want to hear about that. But, and so, like I said about consistency, you be who and what you really are. It always goes back to that. And for reasons I can't really understand, it wasn't even a decision that I made. I can't take any credit, like, well, I really worked at it. No, I just kind of came out like that.
Yeah.
And, but it also came out like that in such a way that I can encourage other people to help be like that. I don't expect everybody to be motivated by some board game where Indians don't wear much.
Yeah.
Right.
Sometimes being who and what you really are is working in a regular job in an office someplace.
Sure.
Whatever it is that that you're inclined. You don't have to be a kilt wearing, wish he was a Indian warrior. But you mentioned the military.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they feel like the military was somewhere that you couldn't go and be who you were. That's just not true. You can be in any circumstance and be yourself.
Yeah.
You just have to be comfortable with being yourself, and realize that if you are yourself, other people they respect it. They also may even envy it just a little bit.
Yes.
I think so, because let me tell you, there have been multiple times with me and people in our friend circle, because we're all hairdressers, where, clients will bring me a picture every once in a while and be like, I saw this guy
Check this guy out
at Walmart or whatever wearing this tiny kilt. Can you believe that? And I'm like, I know that guy.
This dude. Like, yeah.
I'm best friends with his kids, and they're like, oh, really? I'm like, yeah, you should actually go talk to him because he's really freaking cool. And you may learn a thing or two. And it's just like such a wonderful message about authenticity, because people like almost do it like to poke fun or something, and I'm like, oh, you're not poking fun.
Yeah. You actually missed a great opportunity not connecting with this guy.
Yeah.
How often do people come up to you and talk to you about your kilts? How does that happen much anymore?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It happens quite a lot.
Yeah.
And I'll see some folks, I'll hear a picture, like a camera click, and there'll be someone taking a picture from the back, which I really don't like that.
Yeah.
But if I see, like, I never am upset about it. Like, I'll see that people they're like looking at me like they're mean, but they're just taking a good hard look. They haven't really seen that before. They're not being mean. They're just like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to get a look at it. And if I walk up or I say hi, they instantly just open up and they want to ask questions.
Yeah.
And I have men that walk up to me quietly. Man, I wish I had the courage to do that.
Oh, cool.
I was at a big convention and a guy walks up and he says, I didn't know you could wear that. Just saying, I didn't know you could wear that.
No, that was allowed. Like, yeah.
You're giving people permission to like be themselves.
No, for real.
Exactly right. And,
this is a tenet of the Gittite way.
So a lot of time folks find freedom in seeing freedom in somebody else.
Yes.
They can gain courage to be simply who they are because they see somebody else doing it.
Yeah.
That's part of the power of what y'all do.
Oh,
you get folks on here and you're talking about all these kinds of things and folks watch it and they're like, I can do that.
Yeah.
These folks are telling me that I can do that.
Totally. And I don't know, is it the first tenet, the be who and what you are without apology?
Yeah, be who and what you really are without apology.
Okay. So this is the first tenet of the Gittite Way that I read that I was like, okay, be who and what you truly are. And I think the first time I read it, I was like, I don't even know who I truly am, but cool. Like, I'll work on that. But the without apology. I love this part because when we started the Badassladies Club, being unapologetic about who you were was one of our core values, And I always thought that was so funny because maybe part of that was motivated because of the Gittite Way and like the role that played in my life. But it's really hard to not apologize for who you are sometimes when so much of our identity is made up in like making other people comfortable.
Yeah.
And that you can't be who you authentically are if you're hung up on making sure that everybody around you is comfortable, And Jessica and I have talked so much on this podcast about figuring out our codependent tendencies that we have that keep us from really being who we are. And that, that you give people so much freedom to do that, especially when it's awkward and then you make it not awkward for them. I don't remember where we were the first time that somebody, it was a stranger, asked you if you were wearing anything underneath your kilt. And you,
sure that's
that happens a lot. And you said, I don't know, why don't you pick it up and take a look? It might be your lucky day.
And my favorite thing to say, if it's a gal, is
so good.
Well, a gentleman doesn't talk about such things. But I wouldn't prohibit a lady from finding out. So then I'll turn around like that. And then if it doesn't happen, I say, well, the moment is past.
It's so good. And this idea that like when you were in the dump truck business and you have this huge truck, like the biggest truck I've ever seen, that you're standing up in a construction site with all these like massively masculine aggro guys doing things, like construction style in your kilt, like doing this hard labor. with the best legs you've ever seen. Okay,
You
like
really do have amazing legs, Chris.
truly.
It does have to have the legs for it if you're going to run around.
For real, yeah. But that you ooze like masculinity in a way that nobody is confused about the fact that this look is part of who you are and that you're proud to demonstrate that. And, you know, the episode that Jessica and I were recording right before you came here, we were talking about like non-binary and transgender, you know, people, and the idea that like people have been dressing in the way that they felt most comfortable behind closed doors since the beginning of time, you know, and now we're getting to this space where there's more and more room and there's more and more freedom for people to look the way that they want to look and not feel so judged or feel like there's a place for them there. And so much of that journey is what you're teaching in this tenet of be who you are unapologetically, that you don't have to apologize for who you are or how you look or who you want to love or how you dress or any of these things that like you get to take up space. And as humans, so many of us don't feel entitled to take up space in the way that we want to. And I love it that that's what it is that you're empowering people to do.
Well, it is a journey or a process or whatnot. And I went through it myself. I mean, yes, I can point out that from one time I was little, dressed as an old lady for Halloween, you know, until now sitting here and being the way I'm now, it was a process for me. I mean, I didn't just start wearing what I wear all the time. I succumbed to the pressure to conform and to fit in. As much as I was as myself, I was myself to a high degree for the age that I was. You know, but you asked about the Gittite Way, and when did that start? Well, that started after I had been an officer in the Army and survived, you know, the Cold War and Desert Storm. And then I'd been, I had two construction companies. I had a building company where I designed and built custom homes. I had a remodeling company. And but like a lot of soldiers, my military adventures finally caught up to me. And so I got very, very sick. You know, I went downhill, lost everything in my businesses, my money, my religion. I think even lost my wife. I think you know, she left. And when I got to the very bottom, I had this strange sense of relief, you know, that I had a chance now to really do it right, to do it the way I've wanted to do it. And I had tossed around the idea of the Gittite Way since I was in college. I'd heard a sermon about it, and it just stuck in my mind. And so I sat down. I had all kinds of time, and in the dump truck, and when I started that company, it was just so peaceful. You know, I'm just stacking material in the dump truck. You know, you get on the ground, the job looks horrible. You start cleaning it. When it's done, it looks great. And the whole time, there's a lot of time to think. And that's where I kind of developed the 10 tenets of the Gittite Way. And they follow naturally, but the first one is be who and what you really are without apology. You helped to edit that book.
I did.
And so certainly I hope that it had kind of an impact on you.
Huge impact.
And when it tickles me to see that as one of your main, I guess, mottos.
It's what, yeah, it's a hardcore value that I have now.
It is a hardcore value, and it should be. But, you know, I didn't start out that right away. I mean, even when I started going full time and wearing, you know, male unbifurcated garments, you know, skirts or kilts or whatnot, you know, I kind of was a little, I don't know. And the reason why I went full time was I'd lost all the weight. I didn't have anything else that would hang on my body.
Right.
You know, but I had the stuff I'd been wearing, you know, and so I put on a kilt and I said, I'm going to do this full time. Stepped out there. You know, and even I had to have an excuse at first. Like, well, I'm Scots-Irish descent, so I'm wearing a kilt because I got this heritage excuse.
Right.
But I'm developing and learning. I'm following the concepts and the tenets of the Gittite Way myself. And next thing you know, here I am. I'm 61 years old. You know, I'm retired, and I'm just really dangerously comfortable.
Yeah.
Dangerously
Truth.
comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it did take a while. And I recognize that you're asking, like, how is it that people talk to me? And it's because I don't put any pressure on them.
Yeah.
I just don't. You know, I'm happy to share, you know, these kinds of things. The tenets of the Gittite Way, no matter what age you are or where you are in your particular walk, doesn't matter if you're religious or not, or agnostic or atheist, it doesn't matter. They're tenets that will help you just have a better life. And I don't mean like a more money and stuff like that. I mean, just a more quality kind of a default setting.
Yeah. You get right with yourself when you live by
more
these.
aligned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want
It's all
to
about that.
make sure that we talk about the barking dogs
Oh,
behind fences tenant, because
that's probably one of the most famous of that.
yeah.
book,
And when we did edit the book, and I use the word edit lightly, like Mandy and I worked through and edited the book, not being book editors, but it was so great because reading through it over and over and over again and moving words here and changing this there, I got to know the material really well. And this particular tenet about barking dogs really hit me in a weird place because I was the barking dog at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to us about what this tenet is all about, and we'll kind of get into it a little bit.
Okay. It's an essay that's in the book, or a chapter, if you want to call it that, called Barking Dogs and Fenced-In Yards. And imagine just the dog idea where everyone's inside this great big yard and there's fences all around it. And, dog, you're expected to kind of be a certain way. You're barking, you got your food is provided for you, the water's there, and you just stay inside the fence. And you may bark and bark about getting outside the fence, but dogs really like to be in their yard. Mm-hmm. And so the gate swings open and there's a handful of dogs that are like, the gate's open. And so they slip out a little bit and look around, then they run back inside, but the rare dog is one that goes through the gate and walks down the fence a little bit. And the other dogs are barking and barking like, you get up, get back in. You're unsafe. We're supposed to be inside the fence. And most of the dogs, they'll stand there barking at the dog that's outside the fence. And you can be that kind of a person, where you become the dog outside the fence. And it's hard to go further and further from the gate, but the further you get from the gate, the less inclined you are to listen to the barking dogs, because they're barking at you, not out of meanness necessarily. They're worried about you. Mm-hmm. Get back in the fence. You're not safe. You're gonna go bankrupt. Mm-hmm. You need a real job. Yeah. You got a medical card, or whatever it is. You're not safe out there. You need to come in the safety of the yard, of the fenced-in yard. And there's some truth to that in some ways, but being outside the fence is stunningly fun.
Yeah. Freedom. Yeah.
It's freedom.
Yeah.
And there comes a point where you just don't notice. You'll see a dog walking by, other dogs barking, and that dog doesn't even look over.
Yeah.
Dog's outside the fence, and it's they just become barks of desperation.
Right. And that so much of this analogy with the barking dogs hit me so hard because, inside the fence, somebody's taking care of the food and water for you. You have the safe home to go into when it's cold outside. But you also have to obey. Mm-hmm. And you also have to stay inside the fence and be a good dog. Okay? And so you have this thing that you're looking for, which is the safety and the security and all of your needs provided for, right? But you lose this sense of self because you have to obey and live by the rules of being a good dog. And that outside the fence, you may not know where your next meal is coming from, and you may have to drink dirty water from time to time, but you can be whatever kind of fucking dog you want to be out there, that there's so much room. And like you said, the more you live outside the fence, the things like having the secure food and water and being the good, they just don't look as appealing anymore. Cause you're actually, sometimes I get in the trash and there's half a chicken in there, and that's awesome. That there's so much to be experienced outside the fence that when you're the dog living in the fence, you have no idea what you're missing out there. And when you see what you're missing, it's impossible to want to go back in behind the fence again.
It is. That's part of that essay. It becomes impossible to do it. But you don't hold it against the dogs inside the fence.
Right.
Of course not.
Can't. I don't think everybody can run up outside. I'm going to come out and enjoy it for a little bit and go back in the fence.
Yeah.
That's part of being who and what you really are. And I'm just outside the fence.
Yeah.
But that takes some. Part of it's just I'm just naturally inclined that way. I can't be proud of myself. I went out the gate and I was bold. Mm-hmm. And there's some of that. When I first went into business, the first couple of days. I was sitting in the floor of my office crying, and sick in my stomach, not knowing, oh my gosh, what have I done?
Yeah.
I got 3 kids and a wife and, but part of running outside the fence, and this kind of begins to deviate as I've grown, it gets in more into some of the tenets of the Gittite Way, is that you start to understand that there are provisions out there. I call it water bottles on the trail. And that's where you're walking down the trail and you're thirsty and you're out of water yourself. And odds are you're going to find a bottle of water. And it happens so consistently for me that it can become bizarre. And I'll demonstrate it to folks. I'll try to teach this concept that, you will have what you need. You can go out there and be in business for yourself, for instance. And the business, it is there. And you may not even know where it's coming from. All those years that I designed and built custom homes, I honestly did not know where these people were coming from.
Wow.
Same thing when in the haul-off business. I just always had enough business, and I had a good old time. And I really had a good old time. That was the best job I ever had, being a trash man, basically.
We talk a lot about deep trust on the podcast. That, I watched you do your thing. I watched Mandy move from like living inside the fence to, starting her own business and doing her own thing. And I was the barking dog. Like, I remember having the conversation with her when she left the commission salon that we worked in, where
are you crazy?
Well, it was more out of, I was concerned, like that she had just bought a new house and I wanted her to have health insurance. And everything you said was the conversation she and I had, where I was like, I'm not hating on what you're doing. I'm scared for you. I want you to be okay. I want you to be safe. And I remember her telling me, like, I'm going to be fine, you don't have to worry about me like this. And it was like so hard on me to let her go and let her do that. But like you fast forward 20 years later, and I'm doing what she did, Yeah.
And she's just light years ahead of us.
Right. Well, I mean, she was raised by Chris Webb, it's a different experience. And that so many of these things that, again, we were editing in the Gittite Way, or that I watched her, do, were influencing me in a way that gave me the confidence to be able to do those things when I was ready to do them. Because like you said, everybody just has to be who and what they are. And what I was at that time, and for a lot of years after that, was comfortable inside the fence.
Yeah.
And terrified about what it meant for me to step outside of the fence. And it felt too risky and it felt too scary. And I didn't have what it took, to do that. I always had what it took. I just wasn't ready, to do it until I was.
That's it.
If
you're, I like to say that all roads to the truth lead to the truth. All paths to the truth. There's all kinds of different ways, to have the kind of freedom that we're talking about having, and it's okay. I keep saying it's okay to stay inside the fence.
Sure.
It's okay. But you really are missing something.
Yeah.
You really are. And they're good dogs barking at you. Like you said, you were concerned for Mandy.
Yeah.
And when you went out on your own, I was concerned for you.
Yes, I know.
Because I am a dad.
Yeah.
And you were very young when I met you. And I do feel maybe like a fatherly figure, I guess. And I think part of what I tried to do, and what you see in Mandy and Katie and Matt, is as a dad, I try to be involved. Katie would tell you I showed up at everything. I was there every time.
Everything.
Yeah.
Every time the band played, their bands, I was there.
You were always at open mic night
with them, with their friends, and I was always, involved and willing to visit with them and talk with them. So they knew. Mandy knew the Gittite Way.
Yeah.
She was the one that made me write it.
Yeah.
Really?
And because she was like this, she had heard it from me, and she was already embodying it. Even back then, when y'all started editing the Gittite Way, she was in that house that they had built. That was already where she was in life. And then here you are, and it's incredible. See, I love it. And I like to think some of that has to do with someone who's been out the fence before you.
Right.
And can look back and, and it's okay.
Yeah.
There are water bottles on the trail. There is business out there. It will happen. It's not that complicated. It just takes a little bit of belief, and a little bit of getting out there to do it. There's an essay that's not in the Gittite Way. If the Gittite Way ever gets written
we need an amendment, maybe.
One of it is, actually it is. It's called the Worm Plan, And that's basically, I wrote this because I was just starting in business, and I woke up one morning and the birds were just going nuts. They were tweeting and flapping and all this kind of thing. And I thought, boy, they were just so happy and confident. They get up in the morning and they don't think about where the food's coming from or their shelter or anything. They just wake up and it's a new day.
Yeah.
And they're wake up expecting worms, and there's worms. And I thought, it's just like that. We can wake up expecting worms. Like I said, I was in church work a long time, so I won't hide that. That's part of who I was. And Jesus said basically that the same program that feeds the birds in the fields where the flowers are also takes care of you.
Right.
We're in the same program. And so if you wake up expecting worms, they're there.
Yeah.
Big worms. Worms big enough that you can share them with other folks. Mm-hmm. Worms big enough where you wake up in the morning excited, and they're just there. They really are. And it's not some profound, like, oh, my faith is so great. It's not that.
No.
It's just a realization that part of it's taking Jesus at his word. And the program is there. The plan is there. He says that, God notices the fall of a single sparrow, and we're worth many sparrows.
Many sparrows,
and
true.
So step outside the fence and let, the provider of worms, give them straight to you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What I love so much about what you're saying is that it resonates. So, like, I love listening to you talk about scripture and Jesus and things from the Bible because, I mean, Baptist is one direction, but like United Methodist, which is the, dogma that I came from as a child, they're not that far off from one another, like they do resonate in the field so much. And that the words that I use for Jesus or God or what, like that sometimes I'll float into God pretty heavily. And I think that Jesus was a super solid dude, like I learned about him for a really long time. And he hung with my people, so I dig all of the stories with Jesus. And I love the word spirit, and I love the word universe, and I love this idea that we all have a word that we revolve into this idea of like a higher power, right? But that the conversation about deep trust and knowing that if it's about entrepreneurship, that the business is there. The worms are there, like when you expect them to be there. So many times over, I'm 8 months into working for myself 100% of the time.
Right.
And I don't know how much, I probably should look, but I don't know how much money I've actually made over those 8 months.
It's best not to know.
Right. Like maybe it's better I don't know. But what I do know is that my lifestyle and the things that otherwise I would have considered like luxuries or expenses that I shouldn't spend money on because it wasn't like a necessity or like a hard bill or something I needed to focus on, that my lifestyle has way improved. Okay. Yeah. Like I spend more money on self-care and things that make me feel good or items that make me feel good. I spend more money on fine dining with my friends or going on trips and vacations. Like I'm not living my best life. Like I'm straight living the best life I've ever lived in my life. And I'm paying my bills.
Yeah.
And I'm doing as much work as I want to. And I'm saying, no, I've done too much work. I need a few days off. And like I'm doing all of those things, right? Mm-hmm. There's actually no literal way that any of that makes sense or adds up on paper. It does not.
It literally doesn't.
It literally doesn't, okay? I have no idea how I'm pulling it off. But I don't care. Like, I just believe that this is what I deserve. It's what I'm worthy of. I'm living my calling. I'm serving and helping people in a much bigger way than I was ever able to serve and help people before.
Yeah.
My work is of high service and worthy of massive compensation. And that's my experience. And that is because Spirit says I can do that. It's because I have this deep trust in this ability that I am provided for and I've always been provided for. And there's actually infinite amounts of abundance that I'm able to tap into because that's my belief. Not because I'm hustling, not because I'm working 14 hours a day, not because of any of the, not because I'm scavenging and saving and living like a pauper and not wanting to spend an extra penny because I don't know where my next payday is coming from. Yeah. None of that's true. What's true is the deep trust. And what's true is that I know that the universe and God and Jesus and all that, they've all got my back, like that there's this infinite wisdom that's working with me, through me, by me, that's allowing these things to be attracted and drawn to me. And that is something that is one of those, like, if I had known then what I know now, all of that would look different. Because it doesn't make sense, but I don't care that it doesn't make sense. Like, it's working.
Well, one of the things I want, you hit on something that's worth talking a little bit about.
Yeah.
When I wrote the Gittite Way, it's not a religion. Yeah. It's not. In fact, it addresses the idea of what do you call, God, Jesus, the Alpha, the Omega, infinity, the universe, the cosmos, the spirit. All of these are names for basically the same thing.
Yes.
That gets me in trouble sometimes with people of religions who pick one or the other. It doesn't matter. Like you said, believing that there is a system, and there is. If you look at the cosmos, it operates on immutable laws. Right. They're immutable. They're the same all the way through the universe. They're in this room right now. They're in our hearts, our cells. And it is all there. Everything we need, it really is there.
Yeah.
Some of it, another one of the ninth tenet of the Gittite Way is to decide to be content. You have to be content at whatever it is you're going to finally be content with. The pursuit of happiness can be exhausting.
Yes.
And pursuing of happiness, in fact, you can't really catch it. Even our Constitution says you have the right to the pursuit of happiness. Chase it. But contentment is what you can get, and you can hang on to it. If you can find contentment, happiness will sit right next to you, close enough for you to touch it. And so, you have aspirations for more and growing and all that. And that's great. It really is. But at the heart of what you folks have, if you don't realize it, is you're content with being outside the fence.
Yeah.
You're content with not really knowing for sure. You're content with, and you may really get rich. I think it's very possible that y'all will just really get rich.
Into it.
That's what we're going for.
Yeah, that's what you're going for. Yeah. And I think part of what people have been drawn to me, I've been called a sage. I mean, even at the VA, the mental department, I'm under the care of the VA. I'm one of those crazy veterans. And they say I'm a sage.
You are a sage.
And,
yeah.
But, I'm not a hermit. That's a sage is better than a hermit.
Yeah, I guess maybe.
But I am. I live in a small house on a small street. And, I was big and bad, not all this stuff. You remember when big companies made a lot of money and sponsored camp. I just did a lot of cool stuff. And now I'm, like I said, I'm in my little house on my little street, really content. And just really enjoying helping other people find that contentment and learning to be content outside the fence.
Yeah.
Where you have pure contentment, faith that just resides. You wake up in the morning expecting worms.
Totally. The contentment tenet, it's so funny that you brought that up because I honestly had kind of forgotten about that one until you just brought it up. But there's this thing that I've been working with maybe just even the last 6 weeks or so where like worry sets in, right? When you're an entrepreneur and sometimes things happen and you're like, I don't know what's going to happen. And you get worried about it. Right.
Yeah.
And Jessica and I are making such a study out of energy and vibration and frequency. Right. And that worry or fear is a really low vibration emotion, and it only invites more worry and fear to come to you. And so I've had to get really strict with myself where I'm like, okay, Laurie, how is this thing you're worrying about affecting you right now, this very second? Like right now in this moment, all of my bills are paid. There is money in the bank. There is a fridge full of food. You have heat. You have hot water. You have friends. You have an amazing husband. You have a beloved dog that I could not live without. You have the freedom right now to go out and go for a walk or get on a plane and fly to Costa Rica or do what, there's nothing wrong right now. Everything is absolutely amazing and exactly what you always wanted your life to be. So what's the point in freaking worrying about whatever what's happening right now that's a problem, And when I can scale it back in and look at how beautiful my life is right now, then you can't do anything but just be really appreciative and grateful. And that vibration,
is the key, that feels better than worry.
And
ever
that
does.
brings, more of it back. Yeah. So like, it's so interesting how this conversation about contentment is so much a check-in with yourself when you're like, really, what's super affecting me in this moment? And so often it's nothing and you're tripping out on something that hasn't even happened yet and probably won't happen, What's the 10th tenet? Like, what did we just...
Gratitude.
Be thankful, just gratitude.
Okay, let's talk about gratitude.
Like, just be thankful, and that all these tenets, they progress from the first to the last very naturally. And but the third tenet is kind of the heart of gratitude, and that's to hold everything in your life in an open hand.
Love that.
If you have all these things, and they are wonderful, no doubt about that, the minute you try to put your hands around it, the joy is gone, because that is loss. That's expecting loss. That's expecting to be taken away. You got to hold it in your open hand like that, and thank you so much for what is just in my hands. Even the Bible says the only joy and real wealth is to watch it slip between your fingers.
It's so good.
Wow.
Yeah,
it's so good.
That's in Ecclesiastes, and so that's the joy of it. You hold an open hand, and you guys do this. You splash over here and you throw it over there, and some of it you hang on to. You're having a great life, and it's wonderful. But if it gets to where you can't take that trip, or business does slow down, or you have to have less in the refrigerator, or any of that, be grateful, be thankful, and look in your hands and say, thank you, God, or universe, or cosmos, or whatever word fits best for you, that my hands have something to hold in them. Yeah. I'm so thankful for that.
Yeah, I love it. It's so good.
Well, and it goes along with things that we've been talking about lately, like not having the death grip on it and just allowing it to breathe.
Yes.
And sit.
Well, and that whole analogy of like, if a butterfly lands in your hand and it's so beautiful and you can like love it and appreciate it, but if it's going to fly away and you try and like you're going to kill the butterfly, like you're crushing it, know?
That's in the Gittite Way.
Yeah.
You edited that.
That's probably where I pulled it from. Like,
the butterfly, that's there.
Yeah.
So you feel the weight of it in your hand, but as soon as you try to grasp it, it either flies away or you damage it.
Yeah. And that this idea of like holding on loosely, palm up approach, like not crushing things to death, and this concept of like forcing things to happen, which I think goes hand in hand with the living outside the fence thing, is that when you're a doer and you're someone who gets paid for productivity and making things happen, I was so accurate at making things happen. Like, you tell me what I need to do, and that's going to have a bonus, a raise, an incentive, something like that for me. I will make it happen, Yeah. And that is an exhausting way to live long term. And that this whole new concept that we're playing with right now is like, I'm going to set an intention. I'm going to command what it is that I want to come to me. And I'm going to allow the path to unfold in front of me. And I'm going to have inspired action that I know is the right step to take because I'm being guided by this higher force, that's co-creating with me. And how different that is than let's go out and make it happen, And so it's not, I'm a doer. Like, I like action. I don't want to just like sit around and let things happen. Right. But I'm so tired of the forced action where I feel like I have to go out and like hustle to make something go down. I don't want to hustle. I want to let it go, and I want to like bring it to me. Yeah,
it's not necessary.
Yeah,
that's people like, yes, it is necessary. No,
it's not.
What's required of us is to move. You have to walk out the gate.
Yeah,
you have to walk down the fence. You got to run down the fence. But that's all you're responsible for, is to just move. But if you sit inside the gate, with this concept, it's all out there, it's all going to be provided and all that, but you never walk forward, you don't see it. And you talk about the path unfolding before you, that means that you're moving down a path.
Right. Yeah.
Where it wouldn't be unfolding before you. And it does unfold before you. The Bible says, that you walk down a path, and that faith brings about a light. That it just lights the path just ahead of you. Mm-hmm. But behind you is an angel swinging a sword, protecting you from things that you might be afraid of while you're going down that path. Think about that. An angel swinging a fiery sword.
I love it.
While the path is unfolding before you, and all you may be able to see is a few steps ahead of it. But all paths of the truth lead to the truth, and the truth is in one way to put it, is your best life, your best self.
Yeah.
You know,
one of my favorite things about the Gittite Way and about you is that you can have conversations like we're having right now with any person, with any belief system, from any upbringing, and at any age. Okay. Like, and that oftentimes when people are like struggling or in need of wisdom, you just happen to be in their life. And I love, you brought up earlier, like that you're kind of infamous at the VA. And as a veteran, you know, like that a big part of your life now, especially since you've retired, you know, is that you do spend a lot of time at the VA, and that you are such a beautiful light of support for so many people there. And that's a mission from your heart, you know, like that you really do have your own ministry that is helping so many people that have been, you know, neglected, forgotten about, people that fought for a lot of these rights to be who we are unapologetically, that aren't looked out for, and that you do minister to these people on the regular, and that's a big part of your work right now.
well, I really care for people. I really do. And, you know, and part of what comes easy to me is just standing next to someone and just kind of sort of knowing what to say.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sometimes it's just listening. Other times it's just kind of knowing what to say. You know, I was in line behind this young gal who had 2 kids, and she's struggling to get her card out just to pay in the line at Walmart. You know, one of the kids is making noise and whatnot. And I just told her very, very softly, I says, "You're really a great mother."
Oh,
And she paid and left. And that turned out to be someone that Mandy knew.
really?
Oh, wow.
And so she says, "Your dad, I ran into your dad, and what he said to me was so what I desperately needed to hear."
Oh, I love
And
that.
yeah, it's just things like that. You know, little, you know, babies and kids is an easy thing because they're so obvious. I was at the DMV, right? That's a hard place to be for everybody. And this young mom walks in, clearly her first child. She's got everything you can possibly have. She's got this little bitty infant, and the infant is just crying and crying and crying. And she reaches the end of herself, you know. And so she moves outside with all of her kind of stuff. And I've got my number right here. And I'm like, no, I give the number to somebody else. And I walked out because she was in need.
Oh.
And you know, it's a little bit scary. Some old guy with a beard's following you out, you know,
Right.
young mom with a baby. But my heart just went out to her, and I said, "I'm a granddad. I got grandkids." I says, "Let me hold your baby for a minute so you can gather yourself." And I mean, she was crying.
Oh.
And you know, I took the baby in my arms, and the baby just stopped crying.
Yeah, I did.
Just looked up at me, and I was having such a nice time. And she was able to collect herself. You know, it's such a small thing.
Yeah.
You know,
And such
it's
an
not
easy
me,
But everything,
look at me,
yeah.
look what I did. I'm just doing what I was inclined to do. You know, people ask me, well, you know, this isn't the Gittite way. How do you know what God's will is? How do you know what your life is supposed to be? I tell you what it is. Just doing the things you're already naturally inclined to do. Just listening to that still small voice behind you that says, turn right, turn left, like Isaiah did. I think Isaiah. And then learn how to pay attention to that. You know, and the key to that starts really, really simple. It's what I tell folks who are from the very beginning and trying to understand how do you grasp the way the path goes and where it leads. The first thing you do is when you feel like you should give somebody a phone call, you give it to them.
Yeah.
Right then. And you will see how the spirit or whatever does it, whispers. It's like a little whisper behind you says, turn right, turn left, make a phone call. You make the call, and I guarantee the person on the other side says, "I can't believe you called. I'm so thankful that you called. I was just thinking about you." And you get good at that, you'll get better at hearing that still small voice telling you a whole lot of other things, you know, with questions to ask and something like this.
Yeah.
Who to invite, you know, what to do next, wherever y'all going to go for lunch or whatever you might be doing. you'll get to where you just kind of hear this little direction. It's not only this path unfolding before you, but you're getting instructions, as you go. You don't even know exactly why you're making decisions you are. You just know that it's incrementally supposed to go this way. And your life, even if you get off track, if you can make those little incremental decisions to do what you're supposed to do in the moment, your life will arc around to wherever it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
It may be you're not going straight towards it. It'll arc around. It might cross it. It might arc around again like this. But if you're going incrementally, you're getting good at listening to the Spirit, listening to the instructions you're getting to go down the path. It's a beautiful thing. And you live a life like mine where, I've got my country loves veterans, and so they're taking good care of me. I got nothing to do really but to see what the Spirit leads me in the moment, who to call or where to go, or
what you're doing such a good job explaining right now is that you are, and your whole life probably have been, an open channel.
Yeah.
That's
a good way to put that.
Channeling is, I don't know, is it controversial anymore? Like, I feel like it's that a lot of what I'm doing when I'm working in intuitive healing sessions with people is channeling information to them from spirit, like from, and that's what you're talking about, is like this like urge or this tendency that's telling you to make the phone call, or just knowing what to say to people. Like you said, I just know what to say. I also have that. And it's what I have made money on for decades in my career, is just knowing what to say at the right time. But it's not because Laurie knows what to say. Right. It's because I know how to connect and the words come, right? And that being an open channel is a gift.
It really is. And there's so many words to use to try to quantify or try to explain very complex things. The one word that sort of describes a lot of what you're saying is intuition.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes. Totally. It's a great word for it.
And intuition is not a matter of it's not even a matter of faith. Mm-hmm. You have it,
right?
Whether you
like it or not,
you just like it or not, you have it.
Yeah.
It's that part of you that takes in everything. And we can only see that. I'm only looking at you. I can barely see what's around. I have no idea what's behind me. That's kind of how it is, right? But your intuition, it's like above you. It's got everything. It's looking in every direction. It's tapping into the cosmos. It's tapping into emotions of people around you, friends that are on the other side of the country, the other side of the world. And if you can learn to kind of listen to your intuition, then you'll know what to say to folks.
Yes.
You'll be able to channel what someone needs because your intuition is giving you a hint.
Yeah.
This is what, this gal needs for someone to just hold her baby.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science. Mm-hmm. It was just me feeling my intuition, having a ticket in your hand and having someone outside that you intuitively know, that's being channeled to me, I guess as you would say.
Yeah.
This is where I need to go to channel, some help.
Right.
Some encouragement. Mm-hmm. Someone who really desperately needs it. If you have a gift at that, you've got a really wonderful gift. And, but it's also something I believe, people can learn. They may not have it as much as someone who just happens to have it. I don't even try.
Yeah.
But so I can't take any credit for it. But I do teach people that you can work in that direction.
Sure you can.
Yeah.
You can learn to listen to that still small voice. Like I said, there are little exercises you can do to give you more and more confidence. I've even taken somebody down the trail a while back. He didn't believe me about the water bottles on the trail. Mm-hmm. And so we go and I run out of water and he runs out of water. I said, don't worry about it. There'll be water bottles on the trail. Don't worry about it. He said, yeah, right. You're always saying that. And so we're going down the trail and I kid you not, someone had dropped a case of bottled water on the trail.
What are the chances?
I know. And even I was like, wow.
Okay.
Look what I did.
And I was like, man, I can't believe it. I'm thirsty and get some water. And he said, what are we going to do with the rest of this water? I said, well, we're going to take it and we're going to put it on the trail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we carried that stuff down and a bunch of people found water bottles on the trail. Maybe someone left them for me when I found them. I don't know where they come from.
Yeah.
I was in Death Valley.
That was a divine intervention.
No doubt. Like
I found one. Well, yeah, it's a divine intervention. It's also just how the world actually works.
Right. when you pay attention.
When you pay
When you
attention.
pay attention and you make yourself available to it.
That's
Yeah.
a very good way to put that.
Yeah. Chris, I could talk to you for hours. We're not going to because we're, about an hour long podcast around here is our go. But we're going to link all the ways that you can follow Chris Webb. We talked about some random grandpa earlier. This is like Chris's alter ego that he, has these great epiphanies and isms that come from some random grandpa, which is Chris Webb. Because like how many grandkids do you have now? 6?
I have 6 grandkids. If you count Peggy's grandkids.
Oh, right.
She has 8.
Yeah. Oh my
wow.
gosh.
You guys have a
So
really extensive.
we're in the teens, and who knows? Like we could find out any minute that somebody's having a baby. So
Don't say that, Laurie.
it could happen. I don't put anything past the Webb clan. Like it's possible. So we're gonna put all the links for how you can follow Chris, how you can get into the Gittite Way. It will change your life to read about some of these concepts. You're such a gift. Thank you so much for coming on today. We so appreciate you.
I'm honored to have been invited out.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Good.
It's been fun. Went by like that.
Yeah, it does go by fast. If you guys feel like this episode would help somebody, then please share it with them. Get on and give us some reviews. Tell us if any of these things landed with you. We love you so much. We'll see you next week.